All right. I think it's recording. Cool. So now more live on Facebook. It's going to take me, choose where you want to post this in a page I manage. Ninja Abingdon. Next. Please don't give me any trouble. All right, so it's preparing live streaming.
Okay.
You're wearing headphones, right?
I am. Is that a problem?
It shouldn't be. I just know that we did another podcast and for some reason, like, they could hear me, but they couldn't hear whoever was wearing the headphones. So
I can get rid of them.
Okay, cool.
They're going.
Oh wow, and you're so much louder now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like too loud?
No, like it's good.
Okay.
I have my volume 100%, so I'll turn it down a bit.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Let's see here. I'm not sure if it's working. It says is live now, but like it's not showing me anything. Louder now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay, here we go.
Like too loud?
No, like it's good. I don't know why it's playing.
That's me. That's my voice.
Yeah. All right, cool. Let's get out of that because I don't want to hear myself.
Me either.
All right, so I think we got it all squared away. I'm recording, and it looks like we're on Facebook. So, hi, Facebook. My name is Sydney Brackens. I'm the manager of Ninja Abingdon Martial Arts. And with me today, I have Miss Lauren Friedley, who is a teacher. And so today we want to, she wants to give you guys, all you parents out there, a little bit of advice because we know that everyone is struggling right now, and parents the most, because you guys are not just stuck at home, but you're stuck at home with your kids. And they have a lot of energy. And so Lauren has some wonderful advice to offer in regards to how you can best manage your schedule and how you can make learning a little bit more fun for your kids. But it's okay if, you know, they find it boring. There are ways around that. So enough about me. So Lauren, I guess tell us a little bit about yourself, where you teach, how long you've been teaching, and just a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Lauren Friedley, and I have been teaching at a small private school called Trinity Lutheran School for the past 3 years. And before that, I was getting my, certification, working at various public schools in Frederick County, actually. And the other question, see, this is my problem. I'm like, and this is with the different learning styles that I'm going to talk about in a little bit, but I'm a visual learner, which also makes sense because I'm the art teacher. I'm the art teacher at this school. So I respond better to things visually, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But like I said, I'm the art teacher at this school, actually, and I teach the entire school. I'm certified through kindergarten to 12th grade. Most of my experience is with elementary school and middle school, mostly with middle school. And just this year, I have gotten the opportunity to interact with some of the younger kids at the school in the Early Learning Center. So as of like September, October, I've been working with the 2-year-olds, the preschool kids, and the pre-K kids. So I have a very broad age group that I am working with. Okay.
That's a skill on its own. How you can like relate to each group of kids. That's insane. I give you a lot of props for that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's each grade level, each age group has its challenges. And when you're thinking about how to homeschool your child or come up with a schedule, it's gonna vary depending on how old your kid is, because you can't expect, you know, a kindergartner to sit there for the same amount of time that an 8th grader can. It's just not going to happen. And I think that's good for an introduction. I can start getting into my little PowerPoint that I have created, because that's what the quarantine has done to me. I am just sitting around making PowerPoints.
Yep. But yeah, so Lauren's going to go ahead and share her screen so we can all view her PowerPoint. Also, as a side note, I think I forgot to mention this. I know Lauren. She's a student at our school, so it's kind of funny. The teacher is the student, and the student right now is the teacher. Yeah, it's funny how this works. But yeah, take it away, Lauren.
I mean, my students teach me things all the time.
Like how to drive you nuts.
Sometimes it does. Yeah. Okay. There we go. We should be seeing my PowerPoint resources for parents. I also have a link. It's like a Google slide. I have a link that I can probably share with you at some point. So you can come back and just look at the PowerPoint at your own pace. And this is just some general advice, because yes, you're a parent, but you might not be a school teacher, and those are different things. I mean, it's not something that everyone wants to do. It's not something everyone's prepared to do, to be a teacher to any child, you know. So I just have some general advice on, like, schedules are going to be very, very important. I just think for everyone at this point in time, especially if you're not going to work, like physically, you're working remotely, you're gonna really benefit from a schedule, and especially kids, especially younger kids. They really do well and they thrive when they have a schedule. Like, I know when I have the really young kids and something's off with the schedule, like something they're not prepared about, they will be like, that's not the schedule. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. What? They get very confused and upset. So a schedule is important. You might already be keeping some type of schedule with your family, and that's cool. I'd suggest, since you want to have learning occurring, or you have work from the school that your kid goes to, you might want to maybe tweak that schedule a little bit. And something that I think would be helpful for myself, like if I had a child that was not a 3-year-old dachshund, you know, someone that could read, you know, I would dedicate each day of the week to a subject. You know, if you're able to do that, I think that would be a good idea. So that way, let's say Monday, you're going to do math on Mondays. You don't have to worry about preparing, oh, I need language arts stuff, I need science stuff, I need this, I need that. You can just worry, like, okay, math is happening on Mondays. Mondays are for math. And then you switch to a different subject for a different day. So that way, everything that you are doing on Monday, for example, is centered around math. You know, you can be in that math mindset all day if you want to. And again, this is something that's going to vary from person to person, but this is just what I think might be best for a lot of people. And when I say to schedule everything, I mean, like, make a schedule of everything. I actually have a schedule I'm going to be putting up on the screen in a little bit. And it's included everything. It's got like break times, it's got nap times, meal times, free time, all factored into this schedule. And you're also going to notice that the amount of time that they have dedicated to working on schoolwork, you know, for, you know, in one sitting is going to be kind of short. And the schedule is also going to be very helpful if you have more than one kid. Like, let's say you have 3 kids and you only have one computer. You know, that's going to be really hard if they're taking online classes and you've got 3 of them that need to use it like all the time. Setting up a schedule is going to help kind of manage that. Like, okay, so Johnny is going to work on his technology assignment, you know, let's say from 10 to 11 o'clock in the morning. Okay. And then Susie is going to do chores, and Bob is going to go walk, give the dog a walk or something like that. Probably not for an hour, but you never know. So next, most kids, they can't sit there for 8 hours and do schoolwork. You might be like, well, they're at 8 hours every day at school, right? So why can't they do that at home? It's not really the same, because even during the school day, they're moving around to different classrooms. They're taking breaks, they're having lunch, they're having recess, they might be having nap time. And that takes up part of that time. So they're not sitting there for 8 hours doing nothing but work. And when they're at home, you can't really expect them to do that either. So what I'm suggesting for when you are having your kid do schoolwork to kind of make it as painless as possible and make it as much of a positive experience for everyone involved, is to chunk work time into like 1 or 2 hour blocks, depending on what your kid's doing, what activity they're doing. Like if they're doing like an extended project where they might need to spend more time on it, of course, you know, that's different. But general, only have them work for maybe 1 or 2 hours at a time, and then they need a break. That can be a lunch break, or maybe nap time, or they do a physical activity. But when I say break time, it's not just, okay, stand up from the computer, do some stretches, wiggle your arms out, and then sit back down and go back to work. They need something more. They need more of a break from the situation, okay, to refresh their mind, than what you could get from just standing up and shaking your arms out and sitting back down. So, and that's also going to be helpful for yourself, because if you have a kid that is constantly squirming in the chair at the computer or squirming around trying to read a book, you know, that's going to be, you know, that's going to take up your time being like, you know, stop wiggling around, stop squirming around. If they have that break, you'll see less of that while they're working. And some kids might need more than just that break. They might need some smaller breaks. If they have a hard time focusing or they're very high energy, they might need a couple more breaks for their brain than just like the 1 every 2 hours. They might need like a small 5, 10, 15-minute break. And again, that's where they have to do something else. Leave the schoolwork situation, and then go do something else. And that kind of acts as like almost like a restart on their mind. Okay. So that way when they come back, they are refreshed. Okay. I do this in the classroom where if I see a kid is kind of squirming in his seat or whatever, I tell him like, okay, I can't give him like 15 minutes, like go play out in the hallway for 15 minutes. I can't do that. But I'll say, hey, do you want to go get a drink? Or do you need to use the bathroom? And they'll be like, yeah, okay. Because they kind of know that's code for like, you know, do you need to go stretch your legs, get a scenery change? A lot of that's just getting out, doing something else, and then coming back. And I'm not sure, this is going to vary on how old your kid is and what your school in particular is doing. But what my school is doing is we're trying to keep the work that students are doing to about 4 hours each day. So that's half of what the normal school day is. Okay, we came together and we made that decision to try and keep it so that combined, like all the classes that they work for that day, they only are doing 4 hours of work. Okay, and again, that's gonna change based on the complexity of an assignment. Like if they're doing something about research, you know, or some sort of project where they have to make something, that might take longer. But I'm just talking about like normal schoolwork, like answering questions, quizzes, tests, all that kind of stuff. Let's see. I think next I have the schedule. Yep. So I can't take credit for this schedule. This was shared with me by one of my coworkers. This is her daughter goes to a different school, and this school sent this out to all the parents, and it's just a guide for that you can follow. You know, you can change it up if you.
I like how the second bedtime is for the kids who don't fight. The
Yes,
later
exactly. Yeah, and I'm going to talk. That's actually something that I'm going to talk about next, I believe. But it also has examples over here, you know, like the morning walk, you know, or you can do yoga. Academic time. This would be a time when they would be working on schoolwork. And if they're older, they're probably going to need more than the 2 hours or whatever it is, the 3 hours that it says on here. You might have to change that up a little bit. But yep, there's that. And about the kids that don't fight. So this is the art of PBIS, and that can be code for bribing your kids, but we don't call it that because we're teachers and we like acronyms, and you know, we don't want to call it that. So PBIS stands for Positive Behavior Initiative School. And basically what it looks like in a school is they normally have something that's like a ticket. It might have the school mascot on it or something. The one school that I taught at, they were called Paulers because they're like, it was based on their mascot or something. I don't know exactly how they came up with the word Paulers. That's just what they called it. And they would get that for achieving or going above and beyond in their classes. Like it was up to the discretion of the teacher how they handed them out. And then they could use those tickets and like cash them in and, you know, get certain rewards. Like they had a Pauler shop. You could buy like little erasers and pencils and stuff there. Or something that I would do in my classroom when I was teaching art there is if they gave me a Pauler, they could listen to music on using their headphones.
Very smart.
If they didn't,
I said that's very smart.
Yes. If they didn't have a Pauler, then they didn't get to listen to music. So it was rewarding the kids that were doing well without really focusing so much on the punishment side of things. And if you want to try this, I mean, I'm sure your parents, I'm sure you're doing some form of this already at home. If you're not, then you might want to start. But basically, you're rewarding positive behavior regarding their schoolwork or their behavior while they are doing their schoolwork. And something that's tricky with this is you have to keep a high standard for the behavior you reward. So if you're giving out positive like PBIS tickets when a kid just puts their name on the paper, then, you know, that's, what is it worth then? It's not really worth much if you can get it by just doing the bare minimum. So you're going to have to keep a high standard for how you hand out those rewards, you know, like, you know, how many times did you have to say you need to sit down and do your work? Or how many times did you have to, you know, get them to stop doing something and get back to their work? You know, those are things that you're going to have to think about when and if you want to implement this system. And like I said, with this one school that I taught at, you could turn it into a point system. And when they achieve a certain number of points, they can like cash it in for a reward. You can use stickers, you can use check marks, you can use a board game to track how many points they have. One of my coworkers actually uses a board game in her classroom, and each of her classes, so she teaches multiple classes, each of her classes has like a different figurine on the board, and when the class has a really good day, she moves them one space forward, or two if they were really super duper awesome. And with PBIS, especially with the situation we're in now where you're at home and these are also your kids, I would avoid material rewards. Like I would avoid things like, you know, stickers, or I'm gonna buy you a new iPad if you do your math homework. I mean, I don't really think that really equates to, you know, like the reward versus what they're actually doing. So I have some non-material reward ideas that you could use. Like maybe they get to choose something that the family does together. They get to choose the movie that they watch for family movie night, or they choose some type of game to play with the family. They get to choose what they eat for a snack or for dinner, you know, instead of maybe eating the apple for a snack, which they should. Maybe they want to eat a marshmallow instead. They can stay up or sleep in later than usual. You know, if the kid's not fighting, then they can stay up for a bit longer than they would otherwise, or something like extra free time. Or if they really like to draw, maybe they have extra drawing time. Or they like to be outside, they have extra outside time. Okay. Excuse me. Now we get to the resources. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the different learning styles. I said at the beginning, I am a visual person. I'm not very much an auditory learner. So if you're an auditory learner, when someone's talking to you, that's the best way that you get and retain information. If you're a visual learner like me, you like to see things written out. And that's how you remember it. Like you either write it out yourself or you see it written out. And there are other types of learning styles as well. There's kinesthetic learning, which is when you learn by doing, like you learn by doing a picture. You learn by physically doing something or doing some type of exercise, or like, for example, if you're learning about physics, this is the first thing that pops to my head, of course, physics. It will, instead of reading a textbook or doing a problem regarding physics, they would understand it better if they physically did like an experiment and saw the outcome of that. And I think a lot of people have more than one learning style. So it's not like I'm just a visual learner. I'm also, you know, maybe something else. There's people that learn better through music. There's people that learn better through art. And all of these resources that I have up on here. And
now,
sorry,
Lauren,
yes.
Would you recommend Khan Academy for any particular age group?
That is actually something I have on here. On a different slide, I do have
Okay.
Khan Academy. I think that's going to be more for upper elementary and middle school to high school. I'm not sure how, like, I'm not sure what kind of resources they would have for the really young kids. Like, let's say like 3rd grade and younger. I'm not sure if they would have a whole lot of resources for that. But I went and found some websites that actually have lesson plans ready to go, or activities, instructional videos, instructional games, like, for example, Delta Math. No, not Delta Math. It's Prodigy Game. That's an actual game that tricks them into liking math. I'm not a math person. I've actually seen the kids play this at school, and let me tell you, if I had that when I was in school, I would be a lot better at math than I am right now. I might have actually enjoyed it because it looked fun. The characters are cute. It's free, as far as I know, it's free. Pretty much all of these resources I have here are free. There are maybe like 2 or 3 that you might have to pay something for. So, take it or leave it. Pinterest is another one. I'm only saying that because Science Fusion is something that my school uses a lot. But in order to get like their curriculum, you have to be like part of a school, so you have to be like a teacher or an administrator. But I went on their website and I found out they have a Pinterest board that has tons of science lessons, and they're separated by age group, and those go all the way down to early learning, so like preschoolers, toddlers, and stuff, which I thought was really, really cool.
One of our members is saying right now that his kids actually use some of those resources and that they love them.
Okay, good. So I've got some like language arts, reading, grammar resources. Get Epic, I think, is one that you normally have to pay for, but because of the quarantine, they're waiving fees.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they have hundreds of books that you can read online for free. So I haven't looked into it that much, but I know the English teacher at my school is using that right now. We've got ReadWorks that's got, again, tons of curriculum resources. You can just go on there, you can find activities, you can find lessons that are ready to go. You just have to follow the directions. And Spelling City, that's got vocab and spelling activities. I think you can pretty much use that for any grade, probably from, I don't know if it would go all the way down to kindergarten, but probably from like 1st or 2nd grade up, they could probably use that. And we've got social studies. Oh, I skipped it. There we go. We've got all sorts of and again, these are resources that I specifically chose because you can just click on any of these links and you will find lessons for any topic, any, whatever age group, unless I've otherwise specified it here. They're just ready to go. So this one right here, this is for grades 3 through 6. Sorry if you're in high school or you're in 2nd grade, you're out of luck. But you could go to some of these other sites that I have. This one's really cool, the Digital History Timeline. It has major events you can just click on and it'll tell you all sorts of information on. It's really, really cool. And then I've got multiple subjects here. So we've got Khan Academy, like we mentioned earlier. We've actually got resources from the Library of Congress. So it's legit because it's the Library of Congress, right? I checked this one out actually because I didn't
I didn't know they had it. And that seemed pretty good. You can search through different topics and it'll have articles you can read and lessons. And this one right here, this HMHCO, this is the same people that do Science Fusion, which is something that I know the science teachers at my school use. They have their own list of free learning resources, and they're pretty awesome. They're pretty awesome. So I would definitely check out their list of learning resources if you'd like. And then of course PBS. I grew up on PBS. I'm sure a lot of other people are growing up on PBS, but when I was a kid, we had PBS and then we had like Fox 45, and those were the two channels. So those are the only choices I had. But they've always been really great for providing, you know, educational resources for kids. And we have Flowcabulary, which is a new one for me, but it has educational rap videos.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. This is just an example that came up to me, but you could have them listen to a fun educational rap and have them memorize it, and then they will never stop singing it.
Yeah, that's a great resource for the auditory learners.
Exactly, yes. And for the people that like to learn through music.
Yeah, exactly.
I think this is a time when a lot of kids and a lot of parents are probably going to figure out how, you know, what type of learner they are. There's going to be a lot of trial and error with that. Here's some more. We've got more PBS Kids. We got News ELA. This is one I'm not sure if it's free or not. I think they're one of the ones that's like waiving their fee or giving a free trial right now. But again, this is one that I know the middle school language arts teacher uses. And she's used it for years. And then we have amazing educational resources. So this is something that's actually updated almost daily by teachers from across the country that has different resources that you can look at. It might be a little bit overwhelming to try and get information from. Me, for example, I tried going on there, but it was a little bit like information overload at the moment, so I had to close it down and go back to it. And then we have Teachers Pay Teachers, which is my favorite website when I'm not sure what I'm going to teach. Maybe the real little ones, because that's the age I have the least amount of experience with. But Teachers Pay Teachers, it's a site where teachers create content, they upload it, and then you can pay for the resources and download it. And they have every grade. Like, I mean, they have early learning, they have elementary, they have middle school, they have high school, they have every subject. Basically, if you could think of a subject, a grade level, and, you know, just like a topic, I can guarantee you they have something on Teachers Pay Teachers. And there is the word pay in there, so there's a high chance you might have to pay for some of the things, but you can find free resources on there. You can search for free resources. And then I have Discovery Education. Discovery Education is great, but it's not free. You gotta get a subscription for it and everything. They might have a free trial going on right now, but again, that's, you know, only if you want to spend money on something. But I have a lot of other resources here where you can find lessons ready to go, find different activities, educational activities from these other websites. So you might not want to, you know, waste money on that or spend money on it, rather, because it is a really good resource, especially for science. It's really good. And what do we have here? So this is going to be more for probably older kids, but just so there's less animosity between like you and your kids when you're trying to get them to stay on task, instead of you having to go over or check up on them every 5 minutes, these are some apps where you can block distracting websites for a set amount of time while your kid is working so they don't go on it. Like there's one for Mac, for Chrome, and this one down here, if that thing will get out of the way. The one at the very bottom, that one's pretty much available on all systems. And I've actually used these myself when I was in college because I would get really distracted trying to write essays. So I would write like in the program, like it just like a window will pop up and you just write the URL, you write the web address of the websites that you don't want to be distracted by. So you could write Twitter, you could write Facebook, you could write Reddit, Imgur, whatever the kids are using these days. And you can set the timer for 2 hours and they can't get on that website for 2 hours. So they can't secretly in another tab be doing something they're not supposed to be doing. And then you don't have to worry about checking up on them so much for that.
I think very handy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And what's next? Right. So break time. Break time is going to be very important. And how structured you want it to be is going to depend on how old your kids are and what your preferences are. But I would suggest that, well, I'm a little bit biased because I'm the art teacher, but I think they should be doing art every day, even if it's something simple, you know. And in fact, it's better if it's not too complex right now, so they can use it as an outlet, you know, as something to be relaxing and not another thing to add stress onto themselves. That's what I'm trying to do with my students right now. I'm teaching the middle school students online digitally, and I'm trying to come up with projects that give them information, have them learn something, but aren't super stressful on them because they're going through enough stress already with, you know, the sudden change in their schedules, sudden change in their environments. So these break times are going to be really helpful to keep your kids staying refreshed and ready to actually do their schoolwork. So if you wanted some structured activities to do during break time, instead of saying, all right, break time, go do whatever, go play with matches. We've got art here. So if you've got something to draw with, if you've got something to draw on, you can make art. You don't need paint. If you have paint, that's great. You don't need to go out and get all this special brushes, special paper. You don't need to do that. In fact, you shouldn't be, because we're in quarantine. I mean, you can make art using things you found around the house, things you found in the yard. Like you could say, all right, we're learning about the ecosystem in science. So why don't you go out and into the backyard, find some, you know, materials that we learned about in our ecosystem, you know, like we were learning about plants. You could find some plants, leaves, stones, and then we're gonna take them and make a sculpture out of it. I mean, you don't have to go out and buy anything for that. They're getting outside, they're interacting with the environment, and they're getting a creative outlet, you know. You can use things that you didn't really think of for art making. You can try that out. I do that a lot with the really young kids. I've had them make art using sponges, Q-tips, pom-poms, toilet paper rolls, bubble wrap, like cookie cutters, stamps, also like you name it, I've probably tried it with them. Yarn, string, and they just like that sensory activity. Even the older kids, they might not admit it, but they like having sensory fun activities like that as well. Every once in a while, I do have a day with my 8th graders, for example, where we'll take a break and we'll do like a little kid project just to change things up. And it's kind of refreshing for those older kids to do something where they don't really have to think too much about it. They just do it and they get the experience of doing it. Like I said earlier, you could come up with a theme for art time if you want. It could be something simple like your theme today is the color yellow. Or you could ask them a question like, if a snowman went on vacation, where would the snowman go? What would it do? What would he eat? You know, what would he wear? You can draw from the imagination. You can draw from real life. Like you could say, choose an object from around the home and draw a picture of it. You know, so maybe they'll get their favorite toy, draw a picture of their favorite toy. And then you can continue building on that by asking them more questions. That's something that I do with kids that do the bare minimum and then turn it in and say, I'm done. And I'm like, well, we've got a lot of white space on this paper. Like there's the project I do where they draw a random shape and they have to turn it into a monster. And then they always are like, okay, I'm done. And I ask them, I'm like, well, where does your monster live? Does he have a home? What does he do? What does he eat? Does he have any special powers? And then that gets the ball rolling. And then the next thing I know, for the rest of class, they're working on those things I added on. And then they don't want to leave. They're like, what? I didn't finish. So for art, and again, this is what I'm passionate about. So again, I'm biased. Start with something simple, and then you can always build up from there. It can just start from a simple question, and then you just ask more questions and have them come up with the answers. That's the important thing. Have them come up with the answers. Okay? And you don't have to be an artist to have them enjoy art in their home. And if for some chance they're a kid that doesn't really like to draw, there are coloring pages. There are tons of coloring pages you can print out on the internet. And Crayola has free coloring pages for like every season, every holiday. You can just go on there, you can print them out. It's totally free. I print them out all the time for the kids who finish early. And I would suggest that you do a coloring page too. All the parents should do a coloring page too. It will be relaxing, I promise. You could even make it some bonding time with your kid. You each get a coloring page and you color it in together. Have some relaxing music on. You could color it outside if you wanted to, if the weather was nice. You know, that's just my suggestion for you. Because this is just supposed to make things more comfortable for you and your kid suddenly having to learn and be homeschooled. So don't forget about yourself as well. Don't forget about yourself. Okay. And we've got physical activity. That's going to be important. I'm not the most athletic person. So
I'm biased for number 2, just saying. I think that's awesome.
Yes, I put that in there for a reason, you know, because you're all part of this wonderful community here. And I'm sure you should be practicing your ninja moves, brushing up on techniques. You know, of course, you got to be careful. Don't try and do crazy jumping kick flip
whatever moves all by yourself. Okay, that's something you should probably save for the dojo. But yoga is good. You can find guided yoga videos on YouTube, ones that just talk you through the different steps, or you can find videos that show you how to do yoga, and you don't have to do any of the crazy things like standing on your head or bouncing on your pinky toes. You don't got to do any of that. You can just do basic moves and then repeat them. You can have a dance party. That's like tricking them to exercise, because they're not thinking like, oh, I have to exercise. They're like, oh, we're dancing. Yeah.
If anybody still has if anybody still has the Wii, I know one of my favorite things was Just Dance.
Yes, or DDR, Dance Revolution.
Oh, that's really throwing it back.
It is, yeah. I know there is a DJ on Facebook. What's his name? Oh, I can't remember, but he was in the news because he's hosting like Facebook Live events, like he's DJing on Facebook Live. Cool. Yeah. So you could have a dance party while he's DJing. You could have your own dance party. You could come up with a choreographed family dance that you all do together, and you record it, and then you post it on YouTube, and you get famous.
Yeah, there you go.
And that'll solve all your problems. Take the dog on a walk. Dog needs exercise. Kid needs exercise. It's nice to just go outside, have that change of scenery from not being stuck in your house or your fenced-in yard. You're going out walking. If you see someone else that's out walking, just cross the street and walk on the other side of the street, and you're still maintaining that social distance. You could even play with the household pet inside if it's raining, or you've got a cat that doesn't really do walks, or you've got a pet bunny, or you've got a lizard. I don't know. You can play with the household pet. You can go for a run. And most important, don't forget to stretch.
Yeah.
Don't forget to stretch, because you don't want to pull something and then have to go to the doctor during all this happening, all this stuff going on, Don't forget to stretch. Yep. Before you do any of those things, including the dance party. Especially the dance party, actually. Especially the dance party. Let's see. And then if you want something that's more quiet, maybe something that they can do on their own, you can do reading and writing. They can read a book for fun. I was a kid that liked to read for fun. My brother was not a kid that liked to read for fun. So you might not have a kid that wants to do that. You could have story time. You could read the story out loud. There are YouTube videos. There are YouTube channels that are dedicated to story time read alouds. And I use them a lot with the younger kids because if it's projected on my screen, they all get to see the pictures, they can all hear, they can all see the words. So that's a really great resource. Or you could have an older sibling read a book out loud to the younger sibling, or vice versa, because I think that would be fun. I just think that would be fun. Or they could write. A lot of kids like to write. They could write a short story. They could write a poem. They could start a journal. Like maybe they like to write, but they don't really like to come up with, story ideas on their own. They could start a journal and write about what life has been like during quarantine, or things that they've observed. I think there was like a whole fiction series of books about like fictional girls living through different periods of time, and this was like supposedly their diaries. I read those all the time. I thought they were cool. Maybe years from now, when this is in the history books, they can use that as a resource. And of course, there's educational videos and shows like The Magic School Bus, which is one of my favorites. So you can check out Netflix, YouTube, and a lot of the links that I have provided on this slideshow have videos on them as well. And another one, guided meditation. You can find this on YouTube. I suggest maybe once a week you do this. It's something.
I agree. I support that one a lot. It's when people hear the word meditation, it's kind of like one of those things a lot of people knock it before they try it.
Yes.
It's actually a really wonderful thing to do, not just for your kids to try out, which I wouldn't recommend that for super, super little kids.
No.
It's a great thing for, as a parent, for you to take care of yourself, to give yourself that quiet time that you deserve, along with, trying it out with your family too.
Yes, exactly. Yep, I put that in there for not just the kids, but mainly the parents, trying to get that time, because I'm personally not someone that can just sit there and relax. It's like I have to have someone else telling me how to do it. So guided meditation is great for that, where it's like, okay, you're sitting down and someone is literally telling you how to relax, because I can't, I mean, that's just a personal thing. I can't do that on my own. And guided meditation paired with yoga is also very good. I'm going to let you in on a little tip of mine. I've actually suffered for years with insomnia. And when I was getting into yoga, there's a pose called Shavasana, which is pose of the dead, basically. And you lie on your yoga mat with your arms flat by your side. And you have a guided meditation, like as an audio playing, that will basically, walk you through the steps of meditation. That makes me sleep every single time.
Wow, that's really cool.
It knocks me out. And I mean, your mileage may vary, but as someone that's suffered from, having insomnia for forever, that like changed my life.
Yeah, so great advice for parents who have kids that seemingly can't fall asleep. Try that out.
Mm-hmm.
Lauren,
Yes.
do you know if there are any guided meditation audio things for kids?
They're not off the top of my head. I can't think of like any particular video. I'm sure if you searched for it, like on YouTube, you could probably find one, but I would definitely listen to it beforehand to get a gauge on whether, this would actually be appropriate for your kid. Yeah.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think that is the end of my slideshow. Was there anything I missed?
In terms of the slides you presented, I think you did a great job.
Okay.
I want to
Yes.
go back. I think you don't have to go back in the slides, but you made a previous comment that that really stuck out to me. I think it was during the art break time activities.
Right.
You made the comment, when the kids were creating their monsters or whatever,
mm-hmm.
and you would prompt them like, well, does he have any special powers? I think the key that you said was have them come up with the answers, and that's not just applies to art, but any kind of educational thing you're doing, especially if it's a subject a kid really struggles with.
Yes.
But I mean, I want you to be the one that's given the advice. So I guess when you're teaching,
I can take it from here if you want.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when you're teaching, like when you're really trying to get a principle of art into their heads, but they're struggling to understand it, and so they're just either staying quiet or saying, I don't know. What are some things you do to help kind of jog the confidence in their brain to get them to create their own answers?
So what I do is, first I try to get them to relate it to something in their life, especially with the more abstract concepts. Like if I'm talking about how Vincent van Gogh used line and movement in his artwork to make it visually interesting, they're going to look at me and be like, what did you just say? Well, what is that supposed to mean?
I'm looking at you like that right now. Like
exactly. I break it down. So like I look at the question I asked them or the thing that I told them, and then I break it down. So it's like, okay, so I talked about line. You probably know line, right? And then I ask them, where do you see lines in your everyday life? And then they tell me, and I'm like, do all lines look the same? And they're like, no. So it's a lot of those kind of leading questions, whereas as opposed to telling them what it is or what the answer is or what to do, it's a lot more productive and impactful in the long run to have them kind of answer those questions for themselves. And you can do that by asking the question right back at them. Like if they're like, I don't know how to do this, I can't draw what that person did, or I can't do this. You can say, well, how would you do it? We're not talking about what they did. If you had to do this, what would be your first step? And then you can go from there and be like, okay, so you did that first. What are you going to do next? What's going to happen after that decision? So I think, yeah, that is very important to have them kind of, ask themselves and then solve those questions, instead of you just saying, this is the right answer, or no, this is wrong, and I'm not going to tell you why. Sometimes, the kids are going to be wrong. I'm wrong all the time, but instead of being like, oh, how could you not get this right? What is your problem? Why can't you do this? You can say, well, like, what was the part that gave you trouble? And this is something that I get with kids all the time. They're like, oh, I hate my artwork. I'm not a good artist. I messed up. And then they want to like crumple it up and start all over again. I tell them, wait a second. What's the part you don't like? And they're like, all of it. And I'm like, no, you have to tell me specifically. You have to point out with your finger what you don't like about this. And then, they'll be like, well, I don't like this part. And I'm like, well, how can we fix that part? And then you go from there. And it might take a little bit to be like, well, I also don't like this part and this part and this part. But you're at least getting them to look back and see how they can change things instead of just crumpling up the paper and tossing it.
And kind of branching off of that, you were saying, instead of having this negative approach, have this positive approach. If a child, or I don't want to just use the word child, because some of our viewers, you guys have older kids like preteens and teens.
Yeah.
For anybody, if you find that, let's say it's math, right? Because I know 80% of people just don't like it, right? Or they do like it, or they want to like it, but they just struggle with it, right?
Right. So, yeah.
Lauren, what would be a positive way to approach a situation where a child and a parent is just totally overwhelmed with a problem and they're getting flustered because they just don't get it?
That would definitely be a time for a break.
Okay.
Don't force it, especially if it's something that they don't like or something that they don't think they're good at. Don't push it. There are times when you can push them, but if they're getting to the point where they're upset and they're flustered, you're probably just going to make it worse. So it's best to have them remove themselves from that situation and do something completely different. Don't, depending on how bad it is, maybe they don't even move on to the next question. Maybe they just change what they're doing. Like if they're working on math and they are really struggling with this one question, it might be enough to say, well, we'll get back to that later. Just move on to the next one. But if it's something that they're really having an emotional response to, it's probably best to say, okay, we're going to put math aside. We're going to do something different. That might be a good time to do something not academic. So Maybe that's when they go for a walk, or that's when they color a picture, you know. And that's just coming from my own experience, because I really struggled with math. Like, I would get really flustered and emotional over it. And when I would take a break, like do something completely different, do something that I found relaxing, and come back to it, maybe in 15 minutes, maybe half an hour, I would look at it and be like, why did that make me so upset before? And I'd be able to do it. I mean, it might not always be that smooth. It wasn't always that smooth for me, but I can guarantee you that that's probably the best course of action for that situation, just stepping away.
Yeah, that wasn't the answer I was expecting, but that's why I'm interviewing you. You're the one that has the expertise in this situation, so that's excellent information. Thank you.
Yeah, and there are going to be times when you can push them. There definitely are going to be times you can push them, but if they are like getting ready to cry, I wouldn't push it, because
Absolutely.
that can make things worse.
Oh, it makes total sense. And that goes into what you were saying with the schedules. You know, some individuals need shorter but more frequent breaks than others who need just fewer but larger breaks.
Yes.
So that makes total sense. Going into the, I guess the next question I have, this, I'm going to try to ask it clearly. What are the biggest differences in regards to teaching in like regular school versus homeschool? Like the methods in which you teach.
Yes, yeah. For me personally, as an art teacher, the biggest difference is I am very limited onto what I can expect my students to do at home. Whereas when they come into my classroom, I have all of the materials they need. I have everything. I've got the paper, I've got the paint, I got whatever they are using for that day already prepared. But I can't assume that they have those things at their house. Like, I can't assume they have oil pastels at their house to use. So I have to kind of come up with lessons assuming that all they have at home is a computer, one pencil, and like a couple pieces of paper. Where I'm sure most families have more than that, but that's kind of how I am finding I have to go into my lesson planning, which is very different for me. And I know for all teachers can say this. The hardest thing is being able to like gauge student understanding and involvement. Like in the classroom, we're constantly looking and checking up on kids. We're redirecting them. We are making sure they're doing the right thing. They're on the right page. We're checking their work. We can't really do that. There are things like, even if we're on a Zoom conference, for example, there are certain things you can't pick up on over, like FaceTime, essentially. As opposed to going around in the classroom and being able to check in with kids and really being able to see where they are and kind of understand what I need to do so that they get the best experience, like the best learning experience for, whatever assignment we're working on. That's something that we can't do right now. And that's probably the biggest struggle for most teachers in this country, not being able to do that, because that's something that has to become second nature for us to do. And yeah, we base a lot of our lesson planning on that, because we don't just charge forward regardless of, whether Johnny's completed everything or not.
Mhm.
We adapt lessons based on what our students are doing and how they're performing. And that's something we can't really check up on or gauge as easily through this method. So it's really presenting challenges that way.
Wow.
That's what I'd say is probably the biggest, most noticeable or most impactful change in, this homeschooling situation versus, showing up to school.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I just want to make a little side comment for all of our viewers. We just have like a couple questions we want to cover
Right.
left, and then we'll start wrapping up. So for any of you watching, if you guys have any questions that you want Lauren to address, please comment on the video, because I'm watching all of you who are commenting and joining in. So just post your question, and I'll make sure we get that covered before the end of this video. But yeah, so moving on. What are kind of going into now, the whole topic is homeschooling and how parents, need all the help and resources that they can get.
Yeah.
What are some things that you're noticing parents are really struggling with, or you feel could be done more efficiently?
Something that I've personally experienced is parents trying to contact me like at all hours of the night. Like if I get an email from a parent at 11:30, unless it's like an emergency, I am not going to respond to it. And a lot of parents, and again, this is just my personal experience. I'm not saying every parent is doing this, but a lot of parents are expecting like, well, it's all online now, so I should be able to reach out to this teacher and have them respond to me within the hour, which is
Yeah.
no, it doesn't work like that. I know my school where I work and a lot of other schools are keeping to the regular school hours. So 8 to 4, that's when you can expect to get in contact with the teacher and get a timely response. If you try outside of that time frame, then it's up to the teacher whether they want to respond to it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And another thing that kind of goes along with that is be patient with your teachers, because their families are in quarantine too, especially if they have kids, because their kids are probably going to be getting homeschooled as well. You guys as parents with your kids home all the time now, you've got a lot to juggle, and teachers have a lot to juggle too. For a lot of teachers, this is the first time they're really getting extended technology use. Like where I work, I'm one of the youngest teachers there, and a lot of them have kids that are my age or older, so they didn't grow up with technology like I did. So they're learning how to do a lot of these things for the first time. And the kids are learning to do these things for the first time as well. So that's just something that I think, or I wish more parents would keep in mind.
And I think that kind of goes along with there's so much worry going on right now, and that's not just in regards to schooling, but just everything. Like you guys are concerned about your jobs, if you still have yours, right? You're concerned about the well-being of your family, if everyone's staying sane, including yourself. So I think a lot of that worry comes out in the form of, I'm going to take this out on someone. But obviously that's not going through their heads, because none of us have the intention to be rude. Like none of us want to be rude, right? But it subconsciously comes out like that.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
We don't know how to constructively deal with all of that stress and that worry. So I think what you mentioned, taking the time to just focus on yourself. Let's say I saw that you had like the lunch and the dinner planned out. So maybe not so much for dinner, but like during lunch while your kids are eating, take that time for you to just go meditate. right?
Yes.
Something like that.
Yep. That's important for the parents, the teachers, and the kids, because the kids are feeling the anxiety too. They can pick up on things like that. And this is the first time they're going through something like this. I mean, I was too young to really remember SARS. So I can't really compare this to anything either. But I'm also an adult. They're kids, and this is upsetting something that they've known their entire life. So they're feeling the anxiety too. So these break times are going to be essential for you, your children, your whole family. You can use this time as like an alone time thing where you kind of refocus, recenter yourself, or you can use the break time as a way to bring the family together. You might want to like alternate, which one you do, which days. Like, we're having like a solo time on Wednesdays, and then on Thursdays we're going to use our break, our free time, to do something fun as a family. Because I think a lot of people are worrying about the work, they're worrying about the schoolwork, and they're kind of forgetting to have fun. And I know that's kind of, with everything seemingly going wrong, that kind of seems weird to say, like, you guys should be having fun, but you really should be finding ways to have fun with your family. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, so it doesn't look like we have any questions. You did a wonderful job.
Thank you. I know everything.
Field, which is amazing. I can't thank you enough for putting that PowerPoint together. So I guess what would you like to say to kind of sum up this whole situation with COVID-19? And what would be your final parting words to all the parents that are watching right now?
In terms of like the homeschooling side of it, or just in general?
The homeschooling side, or in general, whatever you want to say.
Well, as far as homeschooling, online learning, get a schedule down. It can be as rigid of a schedule as you want. It could be more of a suggestion for your family, but have a schedule. Stick to that schedule and make sure that you have break time. Don't expect the kids to sit there for 8 hours and do work. Don't expect yourself to be able to help them for 8 hours of work, So break times, schedules, finding activities that you can do that restore yourself, finding out, having your kids do activities where they can restore themselves, and then finding activities that you can do together as a family. That's pretty much what I have to say in summation.
Well, thank you so much, Lauren, for taking the hour and 15 minutes to talk with me and to the parents of our community. I know that the information that you've shared is extremely valuable from your perspective, and a lot of people I can see on the chat took away from this, which is awesome. But yeah, so to everyone that's watching, thank you so much. Make sure you go ahead and share this video with any parents that you know that could use this information. I'll go ahead, and this video has been recorded and saved, so anyone will be able to access it, even if you haven't been watching this live. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I post those around. But thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you again, Lauren, so much for all your advice.
No problem.
I hope everyone has a good night. See you guys.
Bye-bye.